Welcome to Understanding Economics. If you missed our first lesson last week, this is a chance to recap. We're going to go over what we went over in the first lesson, which was basically a discussion of what we're talking about, because that seems like a good place to start. Now, I asked the students to list all of the economic problems that they could think of, the economic and social problems, and we got a good long list, and we put them up on a screen willy-nilly like this, one after another, until we got a screen that looked chaotic, looked like intractable. What can we do about all these things? And I suggested to our students, and they agreed, that what you're seeing on this screen is a pretty accurate representation of what goes through people's minds when they hear the term economics. It seems like it might be too much for us to deal with. But in using the concerns that we came up with here, we came up with 4 questions that a course on political economy is going to need to answer. The first one is pretty obvious. Why is there poverty? Not only that, why is there poverty when we've demonstrated a tremendous ability to produce huge amounts of wealth? Why is there poverty amid plenty? What is the reason for that? Or is there something about human nature? Are the resources in the world just not enough to go around? What is the reason for poverty? That's the first question that we have to answer. The next question, and it's related to the first, is why are there boom-bust cycles? Why is it that when things seem to be going along great and wages seem to be going up and we seem to be able to maybe actually deal with the problem of poverty for the first time, suddenly things go down the tubes and we have an economic recession or depression? Why does that happen? Can it be stopped? What are the causes of the boom-bust cycle? Now, one of the things that is often talked about when people discuss economics is the notion of trade-offs. Is there such a thing as a free lunch? Can we have our cake and eat it too? And one of the things we're going to have to examine as we go through a course in political economy is the notion of trade-offs. One of the major ones that we keep hearing about is that if we let our economy become too equal, if we redistribute wealth to the poor people, we're going to just not be efficient anymore and our production is going to go down. Is it necessary to trade between efficiency and equity, or can we have both? And the other fundamental trade-off that is very important in today's economy and must be considered is, can we have prosperity for everyone without putting too much of a strain on our planet? Is there a trade-off between proper prosperity and sustainability? Those are the 4 questions that we came up with that a course in political economy is going to have to answer to help us to understand economics. And you remember from our website that our motto at the Henry George Institute is, you can understand economics. We believe that there's no special training necessary, that any thinking person using logic and observation can come to a meaningful understanding of economic relationships. Now, in order to do that, we're going to have to answer these 4 questions, and we're going to continue to refer back to these 4 questions as we go through the course. Okay, political economy is a question of how do we as a society get what we want. Economics might be taught in college in the sense of microeconomics, in other words, how do individuals and firms make decisions about making a living. But political economy and the study in this class, which is concerned with the reason for poverty, is going to look at the economic activity of the entire society. So how do we as a society get what we want? Well, the basic process, of course, is that human exertion is going to act on the natural resources to produce wealth. Some of the wealth is going to be used as capital. It's going to be stored, transported, and traded until it reaches the final consumers and it satisfies our desires. At that point, the process of production is complete. The fundamental principle of political economy, which makes more sense the more you think about it, is that people seek to satisfy their desires with the least exertion. Now let's examine what we mean by that very briefly. What do we mean by exertion? Well, it means different things to different people. Some people might run a marathon just for fun. Others wouldn't do it if you pay them. Some people enjoy pondering deep concepts. Others need to be paid to do that. The value of exertion, and indeed the value of anything in the economy, is subjective. It depends on what each individual desires. But nevertheless, each of us seeks to satisfy whatever desires we have with the least amount of hard, toilsome work. We seek to satisfy our desires with the least exertion. Now, the things that we produce that satisfy human desires are called wealth. And wealth is produced using three basic factors of production. The land is the natural opportunities, the entire world, the entire universe, except for people and their product. All natural opportunities and locations, and things that come from nature that people don't create is the land. The labor is all human exertion in the production of wealth. And it could be physical or mental exertion. It could be the exertion in planning or risk-taking or coming up with good slogans that help to sell products. All of these things that add to the value of the things that we want are under the category of human exertion and labor. The things that we produce with our labor using the land are wealth. And wealth is divided into two categories. The wealth that is used in production, that isn't yet used to satisfy desires, we call capital. And the wealth that we do use to satisfy our desires is separated into three payments, one for each of the factors of production: rent, wages, and interest. Now, there are four essential criteria for our definition of wealth. A thing is not going to be wealth unless it is all of these things. Wealth is a material thing. It's produced by human labor. It satisfies human desires. And it has exchange value. To be classified as wealth, a thing must meet all four of these criteria, and this is extremely important in our coming to grips with the processes of political economy. And I'd like to explore why by looking at a few things that are valuable, that we like, but maybe don't exactly come under the category of wealth. For example, how about money? How about a stack of $100 bills? Well, now that is a material thing. It is produced by human labor. The government prints it up at a cost of about 6 cents a bill. Does it satisfy human desires? No, it doesn't, does it? Because money is a medium of exchange. Money, you can't eat money, you can't build a house out of it, you can't plant it and create a crop. The only thing you can do with money is exchange it for the things that you do want. So it's very important for us to remember that money is not wealth. Money does not directly satisfy human desires. If you have an armored car full of bags of $100 bills and it catches on fire and those $100 bills burn up, well, somebody has less money. Somebody's out that load of $100 bills. But the entire society doesn't have any less wealth because money is not wealth. All right, let's consider another example. How about land? Well, land is certainly a material thing, but is it produced by labor? No, it isn't. Land is what's there before people and will be there after people. It's the natural opportunities. So if we're defining wealth as the things that we produce that satisfy human desires, we cannot include land under the definition of wealth. And we'll see how important that is as we go on in the course. Now here's a cute example. It's a lovely drawing of a panda drawn by your granddaughter. Obviously that's a material thing. It's magneted up to your refrigerator. It's produced by the loving labor of your granddaughter, and it satisfies human desires because it makes you happy every morning when you look at it. But nobody's willing to pay you anything in exchange for it. And therefore, it doesn't affect the whole sum total of the things that satisfy human desires in society. It doesn't have exchange value. And therefore, it isn't in the category of wealth in political economy, despite the fact that you really like it, and to you it has great utility and value. It doesn't have economic or exchange value. Now, not everything that has value comes from labor, right? Bill Gates is a smart guy. That may be debatable, but certainly it's not debatable that he's a rich guy. And a large part of how he got so rich is because he had a patent on the operating system for personal computers. This is not something that was produced by his labor. This was something that was granted by government and by law. And that is what we call a monopoly. competition was not necessarily possible under the Windows operating system because it had a type of monopoly on the operating system of computers. So not all the things that are valuable are actually produced by labor. The factors in the production of wealth, as we said, are land, labor, and capital. And these three factors are mutually exclusive. All of the wealth that is created is divided exclusively into these three factor payments or shares. And the payments are called rent for land, wages for labor, and interest for capital. Now, the process of production in political economy. All the processes by which human labor creates goods and services and brings them to the ultimate consumer. The process of production is completed when the wealth gets in the hands of the ultimate consumer. Therefore, the distribution of wealth we understand as the division of the production, aggregate wealth and services among the factors which produce it. Land, labor, and capital. So the output of society, the aggregate wealth, can be seen in a pie chart divided in shares of rent, wages, and interest. These are the basic definitions. Now our readings at Understanding Economics go into more detail on these, and you should check those out. But these are the basic definitions that will enable us to have, that we're going to stick with these definitions throughout our study. It's important to note that the definitions that you hear in our course may or may not be the same as the definitions you hear in other courses. That doesn't necessarily make them correct or incorrect. It simply means that sometimes a different scheme of definitions is used in service of a different inquiry. Our inquiry in this course is to understand why there is poverty and what is the cause of boom-bust cycles, and to answer those 4 questions with which we started. And for that reason, we're going to stick with this set of definitions consistently throughout our course. The next lesson, Lesson 2, we're going to consider whether there is an iron law of wages. Why do wages always go down? Is there a reason for it? What can be done about it? Why is there an iron law of wages? Coming up next Saturday morning, and I hope to see you then.